Hi there, my name is Bart, and this is our camper here. And if you're watching this video, that probably means that you are about to rent it or you have already rented it from us. And this is sort of the demonstration part that will hopefully take the place of you seeing the demonstration in person, or act as kind of a supplement in case you get to your campsite and you just can't remember exactly how this or that was supposed to work. This will be kind of a nice reference point for you. Before we really get started on the steps, just kind of two quick points to make. One, don't rush. Don't rush. Don't rush when you're attaching it to your vehicle. Don't rush when you're detaching it. Don't rush when you're setting it up. Don't rush when you're taking it down. Don't rush when you're driving to your campground. I'm not going to say, you know, go 60 miles an hour the whole way. You don't have to do that, but I wouldn't go over 70. The tires just aren't made for it. So just don't rush. Just kind of plan it out carefully. It'll probably take you about an hour or so to set it up and about an hour to take it down. So just factor that into your check-in and check-out times. The second point I want to make, nothing about this process is terribly complicated. All the steps are fairly easy, but they need to be done in order. If you try and just kind of wing it, chances are you're going to skip something and you're going to have to backtrack a couple of steps to do that step, and it's going to cost you more time than you saved in trying to kind of wing it and do it fast. The other thing about following the steps in order is if you don't, there's a good chance that you may cause damage to the camper, and that means you won't get all your deposit back. And I don't want your deposit. I want you to get it all back. I want this camper to come back exactly as you left it. So just take your time, follow the steps in order. You won't have any problem. The last thing before we get started, if this is kind of taking the place of your in-person demonstration, all I ask is that you just kind of try to eliminate some distractions. You know, put the kids to bed or put them out in the backyard and just kind of focus on watching this video for the next probably hour and a half or so. It's not a quick process, but it's important. So I just ask that you take it seriously, pay attention to the steps. All right, I have in my hand the same instructions that you're going to have. So I'm going to kind of read off of this as we go, so it'll make more sense, hopefully, when you're going through it yourself. Okay, number one, parking. Chances are if you're going to an established campground, it's going to have pretty level surfaces for you to park it on, okay? If you're going some kind of primitive camping or off-road camping, you want to try and find the flattest spot as possible. If you can't find a spot that's perfectly level like this or that, side to side, there are some boards in here that you can put one of the tires up on to kind of raise up one side or the other. That's kind of important when you're picking out a parking spot. When it comes to front or back, if it's not 100% level, that's actually okay, because we can fix up or down this way, but we can't fix up and down side to side. So that's important when you're parking. Just make sure it's fairly level. If it's 10 degrees off or so, you may want to get the boards out, put those behind the wheel, and then kind of back the trailer up on that. So that's parking for you. All right, after you're level, the first thing you want to do is you'll want to remove the wheel chocks from right inside the door. They're the first thing you're going to see when you open up the door here. The lock here is a little interesting. It's the black key there. And what you're going to do, see, it's locked right now. You can't push it. When you unlock it, you're actually going to turn it to the left and then the right, and that's going to unlock it. Either I didn't do it or I got that backwards. Let's try that one more time. Okay, so now it's unlocked. I'm going to lift this up, put it over there. Now our door's unlocked. First thing we see are these two wheel chocks. This is pretty important. Don't forget this, because if you're not 100% level or you're leaving it here at the house, it's on a slant here. So you want to put both of these, in this case, because the street here goes like this, you want to put both of these behind the wheel. If it's perfectly flat, you might put one chock in front of the wheel and the other chock behind the wheel, just to kind of keep it from going either direction there. Okay, so we've got the wheel chocks in place. We're ready to unhook it from the vehicle. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take these chains off. They're hooked up to the towing part of the vehicle. You can just let those rest on the ground. That's fine. They're not going to, they're metal, they're not going to rust. They're fine. Second thing you want to do is take out this, from the trailer lights. There's no specific place for it, just kind of somewhere comfortable out of the way. This I would recommend just kind of not letting it touch the ground, just to keep, mud and stuff from getting inside it if possible. So we've got those two things out of the way. After we take the trailer lights, chains, and the safety wire. This is the safety wire. We typically don't use it, and you don't have to either. It's just sort of it's kind of a braking system, but it's complicated, and I don't think you're going to need it. We don't. So right now, we're going to remove the padlock from the hitch lock, and that is this other key that you'll have. I'm going to take this out. I wouldn't put it too far. I would just let it rest right here, because you're going to need it before too long. Just leave it unlocked, and right there is just fine. After we get the padlock off, there's actually a little trigger, this part down here. In order to lift this up, we're going to pull this trigger, and then we can lift it up. This is the position that you want it in when you're taking it off, or putting it back on. So this is up. We're in a good place here. We want to go back inside the camper now. And again, it's one of the first things you'll see here is this big brick. It's pretty heavy. This is what we put the parking post on. Go on the other side so you can see. The reason we use this is just to take a little more stress off of this. We don't like to use the entire post if we don't have to. So this is a $5 Home Depot special. And we're going to lower the crank here. As we get really close, we want to make sure that this is pretty well centered up. Looks pretty good to me. We want to aim, if you have it on the edge, it may, fall off. There's more likely it'll fall off, but right in the center is kind of what we're going for. Okay, so now we're ready it's resting on there softly. We're going to go ahead, and you'll feel the resistance a little stronger. Again, this is up, so it can actually come off. And we're going to slowly kind of lift it off. It may shift a little bit, and that's okay. Perfect. Now we're going off. And really, we want to go just high enough to where we're clear of the ball. And we've done that. See, we got some space in between there. So and it would be very easy right now just to kind of move on, or move the vehicle up about 6 inches so it's clear, but trust me, go a little farther. It'll make sense later. So the vehicle's clear. Right now, we want to make sure it's level, okay? We had to jack it up pretty high, and as you can see from a wide shot here, it's pretty off. So we want to go back down to where it appears it's just right. By the time you rent this, we may actually have a couple of bubble levels right about here for side to side, and maybe on one of these sides for up and down. We're not there right now, and really, it's not an exact science. You can eyeball it and pretty much tell when it's level. So let's take a look and see how we're doing now. Okay, we got a little ways to go. Let's see. Whoops, car coming. That looks pretty good. Maybe just a hair more here. All right, so we've got it pretty well in place here. After leveling it, let's go ahead and put these locks back on. There's one I'm going to grab real quick. So both of these locks use the same key. It's pretty convenient. You're going to take this out, pull it out. You want to put this one on first, and just like when you're putting it on the vehicle, you'll lock it in place. So now it's not going to come out. And then this really keeps it in place. And we want to put this one back in here, doesn't matter which way. All right, so now it's secure. We know somebody can't just hook up their vehicle to this and drive off. So the next step is, after it's level, after we got the locks on, we want to talk about the stabilizers. And before we do that, let me just make this point. The stabilizers are not meant to support the camper. We don't want to put a bunch of weight on the stabilizers. This is meant to support the front of it, and the tires are meant to support the back of it. That's what supports the weight of the camper. If you keep turning the stabilizers, they will lift it off the ground, but that's not what we want to do. So with the stabilizers down, you're going to reach inside. There's a cabinet right here inside this. Basically the only cabinet you can reach when the door's open and the top's down. And inside this cabinet, you'll find the thin silver stabilizer crank. And it fits perfectly over these bolts. And as long as you're not too close to a curb, you should have plenty of clearance. You're just going to turn this until they go down. And I'm going to kind of show you when it hits the bottom about what you're going for here. I'm a little close to the curb, so I'm kind of scraping the handle a little bit, but chances are it's not going to be a problem wherever you're camping. So we want it to basically rest on the ground. We want it to rest firmly, but we don't want to get to the point where we're starting to lift it up. And it's not, I can feel it right now, just barely kind of starting to get some resistance, so I'm going to stop right there. Again, you don't want to put much weight on it. The purpose of the stabilizers is so when you're walking around inside the camper, it's not going to be leaning and rocking back and forth. It's going to be a nice, firm little floor for you to walk on. That's the purpose of these. Now, if you're really, really well equipped, you may have a drill with one of these special sockets for it, which I'm going to use here. You won't. Don't worry. It's not terribly difficult to use the crank. It's just a little bit more time consuming, and your back may hurt just a little bit more. So I'm going to whiz around here real quick and get these others. Okay, so after we got the stabilizers all firmly against the ground, but not lifting this up, let me say one thing. If you're on dirt and not concrete, we're here, so the ground's pretty solid. If you're camping on dirt or sand or clay or something like that, and you really want to get a nice contact between the ground and the stabilizers, there's some boards in here. They're under the kitchen table area. I'll kind of lean in here and grab them. These are the boards that you can basically just place under the stabilizers before you put them down, and they'll give it a nice firm surface so the stabilizers don't, sink into the dirt too badly. So the boards are there if you need them. Again, those are the same boards that I talked about earlier as far as backing up the tires onto if you're not level. But chances are your campsite's going to be pretty level, and so you could probably use those boards to put the stabilizers on. Okay. Inside the camper, you will find the battery right near the door. Right now mine's in the garage. Hold on. It's heavy, so be careful. You can go ahead and take the top off and sort of leave that right there for the time being. You can keep this in the box if you want, or just lift it out. Doesn't really matter. I'll lift it up by the handles here because it's a little easier. The battery is going to sit right next to the propane tank. Don't worry, it's not going to ignite anything accidentally. So we'll put it right there. We're going to unhook these cords that are kind of bungeed around the frame there. It's just a nice, convenient way to keep it. Okay, red is positive. So we're going to put this red one onto this side. And you want to make sure that it's actually touching the post. It's possible to get this perfectly around it without it actually touching, and that's not what we want. We want it to actually touch a post. You screw this nut back on this side, screw the negative on this side. Might get a little spark, it's okay. And the way to make sure that this is properly connected, I'm just going to put this back around here so it's ready when we need it later. The way to make sure the battery is connected is you can go back inside and look at this little black square right there. You see this little black square? That's a carbon monoxide / propane gas detector. And if this is blinking green, that means, number one, it's testing the air, but more importantly, it means that the battery's properly hooked up because it's sending power to that propane and carbon monoxide detector. So it looks like we've done the battery correctly. Okay, so we have successfully detached the camper from the vehicle. We've got it firmly in place and all the basics hooked up. We're going to end the video here, and we're going to go to the next part in the next video, which is actually raising the camper itself.